Good morning, welcome back to Emperor's Path. My name is SBJ. Today we are looking at part 2 of the Fiddle Yard. Let's be really honest straight up from the beginning. The usual method of trying to get things done versus time to record doing things has taken place during the part of this video. So there will be points where it jumps ahead. However, they are very simple things that have been done in between. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm not in my usual hobby room. I'm actually away for work at the moment. And I've managed to grab 30 minutes before going off to do my things for the day, to just sort of film a little bit to sort of go over the top of the video. So apologies, I'm not in my usual hobby space. As you can see in this video, the Fiddle Yard is now complete. There are things that need to be done in the future in terms of the point motors need to be added in along with switches and things like that. However, it is a functional Fiddle Yard where I can go off, change the points, let a train run round, stop said train, move next train out. Moving forward with the idea of putting block detection later down the line, I'm not sure if I've said how I wanted it to work, but the plan is that I want to be able to put sections on the layout where if there is a train in front, the other train will stop. And the idea would be that there's sort of 3, maybe 2, probably 2 is actually a better number, but there'd be 2 sections on the layout where a train would stop. So for example, the station's a really good one. And the idea would be that a train can go out of the Fiddle Yard, go up to the station. Whilst that train is in the station, the next train prepares to leave. Thus, the points change automatically. The next train starts to leave. It then gets to a point where it sees that there is another train in front, stops. Then, once the other train has left the station, that goes back towards the Fiddle Yard. The points change, allow that to go in. The train in front then moves up, goes to the station, and the process keeps going. That's the idea. Whether that works with block detection or automation, I don't know. That would be my final, this is what I want to happen with it. It's an exciting prospect, but I'm more excited by the fact that I've managed to get the Fiddle Yard finished. So we're going to go back in time. I'm going to have a look at the process of where we left off last time, which was with one Fiddle Yard with no shelf, with only 3 lines on it, and we are going to go to the point where we have a fully loaded Fiddle Yard at the very end of this, and I hope you enjoy this video.
Hello, welcome back to the second episode in this series. To clarify what we're doing in this episode, we're going to be having a look at the wiring underneath here, wiring up this half of the Fiddle Yard, and then moving on from that, I think, because I'm going to be waiting quite a while for the next set of 3-way points to come, I might even have a look at wiring this all up, to test some trains on, but also maybe wiring up at the back of the layout. I need to figure out a way of having a lift in, lift out system for it, but yeah. So we're going to go and have a look at that, and I'll see you guys in a sec. Right, so since the last clip, I've gone away and done some wiring, but what I've done is I've left some parts so that I can show you what I've been doing. However, just quickly going over some of the stuff that's happened on the top part. I've added on this little bit of flex track here, mainly because I needed to make sure I got some sort of power to these points. So what I've done is I have actually soldered the wires to the rail joiners so that this can come off and that won't be a problem if need be, but it's on there at the moment just so that I've got something holding those joiners in, and it just looks nice, and hopefully it'll allow me to gauge up what I need to do when I put it back on. The reason I say that is because it looks like it's going to be a while before the 3-way points turn up, and I want to get trains running. So the other thing that I've done is I've added on this 4th spur here. Now this bit isn't super nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy this up when I get a chance. I'm going to get my sander out and just sort of sand out the edge a little bit. But basically what I did was I added on a small shelf, and my Dremel has come in extremely handy in the last couple of days whilst I've been working on this. However, this is all good. I'm happy. I've got four tracks now that go all the way down to here. So let's flip the board over, have a look at the wiring, and then I'll just do some little bits with you guys. So one thing that I've done in the meantime since the last video is I've actually put supports in underneath here, which I didn't have previously. I rushed the Fiddle Yard to get it so that I had a continuous loop around the layout when I first built it, and yeah, it's just a thing that I did. And now I wanted to make sure I had supports in there. And what I've also done prior to putting this in, which is something I learned doing the actual layout, is I've put nice big holes in for cable management to go through, because I found I was trying to get underneath the layout and drill the holes whilst sitting underneath a very cramped space. So I've sorted that out. So I'm going to have a look at tidying up this cable management here. I'm going to run a long piece of cable down here for the bus wire, which is eventually going to connect up to the main part of the layout, and I'm going to have an option for it so that it can come on and off. So yeah, let's have a look at tidying this up. I'm going to go away, have a little bit of a brainstorm about the best way to do it, and I'll come back to you guys in a sec. So I realised I said Dremel in the previous clip, but I just wanted to clarify. I'm actually using this Ferex, which is Aldi, ALDI. It's their own brand of cordless rotary tool. It was, I think, £20 when I bought it during lockdown, and it's been great. It took a while for me to get used to what to do with it and where to put the speeds and stuff, but it does everything that I need to do, and it's been a really, really good tool over the last couple of years, so I'm really happy with it. So if you're looking for a cheap and cheerful, or a less price inclusive, less expensive rotary tool, then have a look on the Aldi website, because they don't always have them in stock in shops, and I got it with free delivery, I think. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that one. Very quickly, whilst I'm just about to pop downstairs, I just wanted to show you how the wiring actually looks from below. So this is the feeder wire for the extra set of points. This is the feeder wires on the top three. I think that's for free. Yeah, that's for free of the tracks. Then there's this one for the centre line one, and then there's these bits here. So I'm going to have a look at the best way to lay this bus out, and I'll be back with you guys in a sec. So in regards to the wiring, there's a few bits that need doing underneath, but those rail joiners that I added the cables to, they just come through and pop through there. And these large screws that have come through, I haven't trimmed these, as you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. I've left these because these aren't the final screws. I'm going to pick up those ones, just still haven't got around to getting them yet. So these haven't been trimmed down. And then I've got a bus wire that basically goes the whole length of the Fiddle Yard all the way down to the other end up there. These are the wires that come off those extra points which are on the side. These need better wires putting on them, basically. So I just need to rewire that, or even cut here and bring them over to here, because I don't like these fiddly wires now that I've been using some of the thicker stuff here. I've got these terminal blocks here, which, whilst, as I've said numerous times, I'm looking at going to block detection. I'm using these whilst I don't have the block detection in place, so that all of the cables go to the same place for the DCC bus. But these come down here. Once I've got the block detection units in, I will cut the cables down and make it look a little bit neater. But until then, I've left them with a fair bit of extra cable on there to make it a little bit easier for me. I'm also going to label these up for each individual siding. I'm going to give the sidings names, so when I'm referencing them it makes a lot more sense. So label maker will be incoming. This is a feeder wire which I need to sort out. I just need to strip the ends and put that into the terminal block there. In the previous section I said about how I put some dropper feeders on the middle section in case it didn't work. I have tested a loco on the top, and it does work. So these are not redundant. I'm going to keep them there just in case, but I don't need to attach them to anything at this particular moment. And then up this end, it's pretty much exactly the same thing. I've got these block connectors here to put all the bits in. These are for the siding that I've just installed, and then these are for the points here, and that's the feeder wires on the rail joiners at the other end of the layout. So what I was saying about my rotary tool, I used quite big chunky screws in order to put this shelf unit in, and I wanted to use the big chunky screws because I wanted it to stay in place, because it's going to be a supporting bar and it's going to effectively be holding something that's not cheap. But what I wanted to do is also, I didn't want to absolutely ruin myself with the ends of the screws, so I've just cut those off just to make my life a little bit easier, and I'll maybe wax seal them or something like that to stop me cutting myself on them, but I just wanted to cut the ends of the screws off. So the next part is securing the cables here onto the blocks, and then I think it's a case of me putting the point motors in for the three-way points, and if I've got enough point motors I'll put one in for the outside point as well. Okay, so off camera I've put some slightly thicker wire going to the points. You didn't need to see my appalling soldering in that regard. So let's get these dropper wires put in. So if you've not seen people use a terminal block before, I'm not trying to teach you to suck eggs. There are people out there who haven't. So the way I've wired this up is that I've got a red bit and a black bit on there, so that all of the ones on this side are linked to the red bus, and all the ones on this side are linked to the black. Now the sets come with massive black and red ones like this, and all I did was I used the Dremel and cut them in half because I wanted this amount of terminals, but I didn't necessarily need that for red and for black. I needed them sort of between the two. So all I'm going to do here is undo the terminal block, put the red cable in, and what I'm actually going to in fact do is I'm also going to feed in this red cable from the point. I've already stripped the ends, and just going to put them in the little gaps there, and then screw them tight to clamp those cables down. I had to double check that, and I thought for some reason I'd done it into the black with the red cables, but luckily I hadn't. So I'm going to do the same for the black, and all this does is whilst we're in DCC mode, it allows me to run locos and stuff like that, and then when down the line we upgrade to block detection, I can take all of these out, and by then they will have all been labelled, so I can then put them in the necessary terminals for as we see fit. And there we go. So that's how the terminal blocks work. As I say, I'm not trying to teach anyone to suck eggs if you've not seen one before. I think these are great. These are a lot better than the ones I've tried making myself. You can get them from Amazon. I will put a link in the description below from where I got them, and in fact I will use the Chadwick Model Railway affiliate link in there because I can't claim that I found them. I got them by watching his channel. So yeah, so that's getting that all wired up. So bar doing the same at the terminal block that's further down the board down there, and wiring in the other feeder wires that are at the other end, that's the wiring for the moment done. And then we have a look at either A, putting it back into position and getting some trains running, and then set up one single line on the opposite side, or we wait, we install point motors and just hope that the other points turn up. So I'll come back to you in a sec with what the current plan is. So the last clip we were putting all the dropper wires down, and we were just getting the board ready for the next set of points. In that time, we have now got all of the points, and with that I've also put the extension bar on this side of the layout. So last time we saw a video, I don't think I'd added on the extra bars, mainly because I'm not good at the carpentry. Well, I'm not good at soldering, I'm not good at wiring, I'm not good at the carpentry side of things, so I tried to do it. Now I'm going to say that the one on the far side, which will be the one that is for the inbound line onto the island, is more aesthetically pleasing in the sense that it has a rounded edge. I basically used a spare piece of wood, cut it to the right size, and gave it a sort of edge like that. I'm going to put a barrier up against there, but otherwise it is literally a case of I have just put a right angle piece of spare wood on the side, very similar to the one you're about to see on this side. Now this one I am more happy with. I feel that it is more sturdy, and I have less problems with this one. Now this one is using, if you've been a follower of the channel for a while, you'll remember that I got a massive selection of bedding slats from my father-in-law when they were chucking out a bed, because he knew that I needed the wood for support and stuff like that. And using 2 of those pieces, what I've done is I've put some angle brackets on there from Aldi, and basically just gone along there and put those pieces on. I've then put cork on the top and then put the other rail on. So, in terms of wiring, everything I've done, I have put all of the dropper wires down for all of the pieces of track. And I have also put the feeder wires that are going to be connecting to the main part of the layout, and hopefully, for this particular part, feeding power to the fiddle yard. So, I need to get this put back into position, but I am so happy that this is built at least. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to get this put back into position, and I'm going to connect the track up. This, I might not have time to do it today, but this will be back into position, and then when I can, I'm going to be working on the track. Before I put it back into position, I want to show you what I've done on the feeder pieces of track, and hopefully gives you the idea of what we're trying to achieve. So here is a 3rd radius piece of track. What I've done is I have put dropper wires, come on, let's try and focus on the actual fiddle yard, there we go. I've put dropper wires on this because it is a set track piece. It was very rigid, I didn't have to worry about that. And what I've done is I've measured up roughly so these ends of the track go into the fiddle yard, and I basically looked at how far in it would go, and I've put in a piece of these Model Tech rail joiners. Now I used these on the exhibition layout video, and basically what these allow you to do is once these are in place, I will be able to cut the pieces of track there, and it allow the fiddle yard to be a lift in, lift out section. The reason I wanted to do that was to make sure that I had no problems if I needed to get this out, or when I finally come to installing point motors. The point motors is something that I'm torn about what to do with. I am looking for advice from anyone out there in terms of what point motors are best to install, especially if I'm looking at doing automation and block detection. I've heard various different reports, but if you want to give me your feedback, please leave that in the comments down below. So yeah, so I'm going to get the board back into position. I will get the feeder track going from the main layout onto the fiddle yard, and then hopefully we'll get some trains running. So I'll be back with you guys in a bit. Okay, so a couple of weeks have passed since the last video that I've shot. Let's talk through what's happened since the last couple of videos. So the last video you saw, I will have been rewiring the one of the fiddle lines, and actually since then I've managed to get the entire thing built. So the dropper wires that have gone in have all gone in nicely. I haven't had a problem putting them in and hooking them up. I got some of the black and red terminal blocks so that I could hook them all up in the areas. The wires need tidying up. However, as I've mentioned, I do want to get block detection on the go somewhere down the line, and with that in mind, I didn't want to sort of cut the cables and then it turn out that they're too short. So I've left a lot of the wires as they were. I also haven't put the point motors in because I'm looking into whether I can use the PM2 Gauge Master point motors with block detection and with train controller. If that's something I can do, fantastic. If I can't, not a problem. I'll have a look at something else. At the moment, doing it by hand is relatively easy enough. It's just remembering what 2 things you need to change in order for the point motors or the points to do the thing they need to do. Now, I haven't had any particular problems with any of the 3-way points thus far. There's a couple of teething issues in terms of my track laying, but that's something I will address as and when it comes up. But let's go and have a look at the 2 ends of the fiddle yard and how I've joined it all up. Okay, so the last time we had trains running on this track, we had a curve that went round using just basically flexi track and marrying it up as I needed. What I've done is, and I think I've explained this in a previous clip, is I have removed the flexi track and put in specifically a 3rd radius and a 4th radius set track pieces in there. Now the reason I've done that is so that I can guarantee that the lines going into the fiddle yard are perfect. My flexi track laying ability in the past hasn't been great. There's some parts of it that look like a 5th radius curve, some parts of it that look like a 2nd radius curve, and I need it to be definitely 3rd or more. So I've used the set track for these particular parts. And then I've got the track meeting up with the points that we have seen already being put together on the Fiddle Yard section, and with that they come around here. Now, one thing I have done, and I'm going to show you the other end in a second, is I've actually constructed scenic breaks. They're not finished, but I have put in scenic breaks so that we actually have a definitive stop of where the scenery will be. Previously I just had an old slat that I cut a hole in just to sort of give me that impression, and whilst I was doing this I thought I'm gonna get something in place that's a little bit better. So I've got some backboard that I've sprayed with blue primer, and then I've sort of sponged on the colour to match these parts over here. Using a girder bridge that I'd previously constructed, I've just sort of, by measuring and measuring, I've constructed this little section here to join up with the other side of the canal. I'll be working on these over the next couple of months to get them where I need them to, but they do a fantastic job of breaking the scene up. Let's have a look at the other end. So up this end of the layout, I've done the same thing. I have created a tunnel portal using blue hardboard, or using hardboard, and then cut the hole as necessary. And then I'm using this Metcalf bridge kit as a way to sort of disguise the scenic break. So at either end, it's both bridges, two different types. This end is going to be a lot more green, hills, trees and things like that, because it is going off the island where it's a little bit greener. And then at the other end, it's very much an industrial part right in the city centre. Same thing, I've created a backboard using hardboard, went to Homebase, got a big sheet of hardboard and got it cut to 15-inch slithers, which has actually helped me because I had a few bits that were the right size to use here, but whilst this isn't Fiddle Yard related, I have managed to continue all the way down here. Now I'm waiting to pick up some spray paint to continue spraying this area and get it all so that it's the right colour, so I can then start working on the scenery back here. But I'm happy that it's got the parts that it needs. Those of you who have been watching on Instagram will probably already know this, but to those of you who just watch my videos, one thing I have done, and this is going to be in a layout update, is I have actually shortened the layout considerably on either side along the entrance and exit to the Fiddle Yard. The reason for that was the board came out so much and it meant I'd have to construct a lot of scenery, which I didn't really necessarily want to do. So I've cut those up and I'm going to go over that a little bit in another video. But that's the Fiddle Yard section complete. There's not much really on top of what we've already showed you, by the fact that I need to tidy up the loft, as you can see. So let's go and have a look at what the Fiddle Yard contains. Right, so looking at the first section of the Fiddle Yard, so this is the section that will be coming onto the island, so it'll be the southbound line that goes all the way down to the harbour. On the far outside line, I've got my new, or used, whichever, it's new to me, Bachmann 411. This is something that I bought with my birthday money, basically. It was a present to myself. I bought it second hand, and I think it's probably my favourite loco at the moment. I really enjoy it, mainly for the nostalgia. When it arrived, it had the head code 74. I looked it up, and as it happens, around the era that I'm modelling, that was the head code for the EMUs in the south, going to Portsmouth and Southsea, and I couldn't believe my luck, because I didn't want to have to go in and change it, to be honest, but I thought it was perfect. But yeah, that's great for me. I love running this, so much so that the other engines kind of don't get as much running time as this, but it's so quiet, it makes the clickety-clack when it goes around my track, sorry about the rhyming, that I remember from my childhood, and still hear today, because you can pretty much be anywhere on the island and still hear the trains going around. But it's a fantastic model, and I cannot fault it. Then we've got my Network Southeast Class 37416. That is pulling a 3-coach train. That may change in time. It's basically something that I just wanted to put into the siding so that I could start running it again. And you're going to see when we go over to the Fiddle Yard at the back section that needs populating, so I might move a few bits around. Then we've got 47301, which is my Class 47 in rail freight livery. This is pulling a coal hopper, HEA wagon set. Now, this is something that's completely not supposed to be on the island. There was no power stations on Portsmouth, but I love these wagons and they're beautiful running around. I think they look great. It's pulling 10 of those, which took me a while to accumulate. It is mostly the Hornby Railroad versions, and I've just tidied them up and repainted the frames on there so that they're in the rail freight red. Then just behind that, we've got 47573, which is my Class 47 in Network Southeast, and that is the London Evening Standard, and that is pulling a 5-coach Network Southeast Express, I guess coming from London Waterloo, which is the main destination of most trains leaving Portsmouth. Once again, I love this train. It's the longest train on this particular side. As we go forward with all of the things on the layout, I'm going to move some of these around. I want it to be a case of that. So this currently contains a lot of my favourite engines. So silly that I've got those on the side where they're all my favourites. And the reason I say that is because the 411 has run mostly, and the other three haven't necessarily got much running in. So now that we've covered this side, let's go and have a look at the northbound side. Okay, so on the northbound side of the Fiddle Yard, so this is the section that comes up through the canal, goes through to the main station, and then goes northbound off the island. So I haven't necessarily had a problem with the Fiddle Yard section of this, but for some reason I have had problems with the track off this section. So on the actual main layout, I'm not entirely sure, and it only came about as I was getting ready to film this video. So that's something I'm going to have to address after I've finished filming this section. But at the moment, I think my favourite loco in this siding, in this particular part of the Fiddle Yard, is 47612 Titan in Intercity livery. This is to represent my first ever locomotive, which was from the Woolworths Royal Mail train set. Now this is the Bachmann 47 that I purchased in order to upgrade from my old Hornby one. This is a fantastic loco and it doesn't misbehave. This is, however, the train that's had the biggest amount of problems, and the worst part is it was running absolutely fine until I upgraded the wheel set on it, and on certain parts it seems to come off, so I need to have a look at the back-to-backs on that and find out what the problem is. However, that's currently sitting on the centre line on this particular part of the Fiddle Yard. There are a few other trains that have been in and out of here, but I've been working on the locos, and because this is at the back of the Fiddle Yard, I haven't wanted to keep taking things in and out and in and out, so I'm going to populate this later. I'm going to show you the yard section, and you'll be able to have a look and go and help me decide what trains you think should go into these sidings. So out of 4 sidings, there are 2 vacant, which hopefully you'll be able to help me decide on what to put. One of those is the big large siding, which is perfect for a 47 sort of size or a class 50 size loco with 5 coaches. So perfect for the express looking locos. In the far lane, we have got my Hornby Class 31 in rail freight livery. Now this is another favourite of mine, and it is pulling my Imperial Fists oil wagons. So I did a weathering video on those way back, where I basically repainted all of the wagons and weathered the heck out of them, and basically tried to incorporate some part of my love of Warhammer in the layout, and I thought this was the perfect way to do it. So that also has 10 tankers being pulled. Let me double check. I think it actually might be 9, but it has a lot of wagons being pulled, and that one also is a great little runner on that back line. And this is one that I haven't had any problems with. Hence why it's still there, it's still running in the background. So yeah, that's where we currently sit. Let's have a look at the yard so that you guys can leave comments down below on what you think needs to go in the places on this Fiddle Yard. So all of these locos are ones that I could set up in the Fiddle Yard. I have a variety of different bits of rolling stock. For example, I do have a lot more Network Southeast coaches to create those other passenger services. And yeah, I could do that. There's no problem setting them up on the layout. So yeah, this is something that I do need to work on all the rolling stock and get it all sorted, but I do want to populate the Fiddle Yard, get them all rolling and basically be able to switch out and change trains as and when I need to.
And there you have it, the Fiddle Yard is now finished. As I said, moving forward, there's a few projects that I want to do on this to sort of get this all up and running. However, before then, we have other various bits that need doing, like scenery. Now, coming shortly will be the October layout update, where I've done a lot. I have done a lot on the layout in the background, the Fiddle Yard being the main thing, but what happened was, in between waiting for parts to arrive, such as the extra three-way points that I needed to complete this, I have done other things around the layout, which if you follow me on Instagram, then you will have seen pretty much all of this already. If you do want to see what I'm up to in sort of real life, I don't postpone what I'm up to, you can follow me on Instagram at emperors_path. That is where I post pretty much everything. If you haven't already, please like, comment and subscribe on this video. If you have anything that you would like to see in the Fiddle Yard in particular, because I know that's something that I've talked about during the part of this video, please leave a comment down below, let me know what you'd like to see. Because it was my birthday in September, I have managed to acquire new locos, new bits of rolling stock to help fill out my layout. What that means is, where I had a bulk of Network Southeast coaches, I've sort of I'm reducing the amount that I've got. Don't worry, they're not going anywhere, but the fact that I had, I think, close to 20 Network Southeast coaches, and the biggest trains that I can fit are 5 coaches, 6 at a real push, in each Fiddle Yard section. It's not something that you're going to see like the big long trains anyway. They're not going anywhere, they'll still be there, but it'll be a case of there'll probably be 2 Network Southeast Express locos running around, as well as small passenger services and things like that. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoy that. Coming up soon will be the October update for the layout. If you have any critiques, anything that you want to share with me, please leave a comment down below. Thank you very much. If you haven't already, subscribe, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Thanks. Bye.